Hello, thank you for taking the time to join me. And I want to talk about something that most of us experience. That is, after we have grown in the physical body, then we eventually come to a point where the spirit also has to grow, and we undergo some sort of spiritual crisis, and it's a spiritual transformation or evolution of the spirit. So this is called the dark night of the soul. It is going to transform a huge part of your life. And so if you're undergoing some sort of transformations that you cannot explain in your life, then congratulations, because you are now a chosen one. I hear people talk about the chosen one, the chosen ones, right? But you cannot be a chosen one until God transforms your spirit and puts you to the test. And you have to pass the test. You have to transform different areas of your life, and your ego has to die. Some of the things that you've strongly believed in your life, they will crumble and fall, and life is just going to be sort of meaningless. And so in this episode specifically, I want to explain the dark night of the soul and some of the characteristics of the dark night of the soul. And I also want to assure you that all this is not in vain. This transformation is about to bring something good in your life. And what you need is patience, and you need submission. You need to surrender to life, because at this point, it's not you doing the transformation, but rather it's God, the ultimate, right? The giver of all, and the one who gave you the ultimate spirit that you use to experience the conscious life. Wants to transform your life and put some wisdom into your life. And so you need to sit back and listen. You are going to experience a lot of isolation and desolation and despair. Your life is just going to feel a bit empty, because several things in your life are going to be taken away. Some of the things that gave you a sense of security, for example, relationships or work or people or friends, or maybe your followers, right? All those things, sometimes they come to crumble down. And this is more like the story of what the dark night of the soul is. You might experience, for example, a relationship that maybe has been going down for maybe 5 years, and it's someone that you've been counting on deeply. All of a sudden, it's more like things shift and your stocks go down and their stocks go up. And then, the relationship just comes to an end. And even with work, for example, you get laid off, and the friends that you knew all along, also they start to fall off, and you undergo this phase of isolation, and you feel like you're going crazy, you're going mad. All this is just meant to detach you from the things that give you a false security in life. And once you've reached the rock bottom of everything, you'll come to realize that you can still do well, or you can still have a peace of mind, or you can still feel confident without having a lot in your life. And so all this stuff that has been feeding the ego is just getting taken from you, so that you can learn to trust in God and life. Because more often we feel that we have control about the things that happen in our lives, yet in real sense we don't. So the ultimate purpose of the dark night of the soul is so that you eventually find the wisdom and union with God. You have a direct commune with God, and you learn to trust and have faith. The period of the dark night of the soul might vary from one person to another. One person might experience it for a year, right? Some people might experience it for 5 years or 10 years. But one thing that you must understand is that the more you cooperate, the more you ascend. But if you're not cooperating, that is, you're not surrendering to the will of God, then it will take longer to mold you, right? The more you resist, the more things get difficult. And so this is why you must learn how to get through the dark night of the soul. And that is what I want to share, because for me, it happened several years ago, and all I remember is that everything just fell off, and I was just so much isolated. I didn't want the isolation, but it's more like everything was just collaborating to put me in this spot of isolation. Everything was just blurry, and I would just wake up and then it's night all of a sudden, and I had this deep need to talk to someone who understands me, because I had so much to say, but then at the same time I was so much disconnected to people, and I deeply wished I could rescue myself or find something to give me meaning, but then everything was just empty. And that is more like the thing that you will experience in your dark night of the soul experience, a sense of disconnectedness. But very fast, let me touch on the four 5 stages of the dark night of the soul. There could be more stages to it, but these are just more like the main stages. So the first thing is awakening. That is, you experience a sense of questioning things a lot, and you have questions and you feel like there's just more to life than what you're seeing, all right? It's more like the blue pill and red pill paradox. If you're choosing to not go down that road of discovering the deep secrets of life, then you're choosing the blue pill. And if you're choosing to take the path, that is the path of wisdom and ultimate understanding of what goes beyond the physical life, then you're taking the red pill. And once you go down this road of curiosity, then there's no turning back. You're going to have to be transformed by fire. That is more like God's way of transforming your inner and outer self so that you are worthy of the wisdom and the grace, all right, the deep understanding of life. And so the second stage after going and awakening is the purification. And this is where the dark night of the soul happens. You are going to experience a purification of the soul, and it's going to happen at 2 levels. At the first phase, you are going to experience a purification of the senses. That is your physical senses, because these are the things that hook us into the world, all right? We get so hooked up into the world that we forget our divine nature. And so God is going to put you through the test of purifying your physical senses. And the ultimate goal is to stop you from relying on your ego, because the ego lies a lot. And so some of the things that you count on physically to give you a sense of security, all those are going to be snatched away from you. And now you have to learn to stand and thrive without attachment to all these things, and you get isolated. And the other form of purification is purification of the spirit. This involves a deeper transformation. That is a transformation of the mind, of the intellect, a transformation of the memory, and so many things are going to come to the surface. Things like past trauma, they're going to come to the surface, and you're going to experience a phase of purging. All right, so the phase of purging is where all the old energies and past experiences are simply going to come to the surface, because they're deeply stored inside you. They're going to come to the surface, and now you'll have to process and deal with them. And so if you want to make a faster spiritual transition, then you'll have to forgive a lot of the past things that have happened to you. You'll have also to forgive yourself for the wrong things that you've done in the past, because they are simply going to come to the surface by their own volition, and they come up with a certain emotion and pain, and so you just have to heal yourself. One of the strategies that is going to be helpful is to do this exercise where, for example, if you hurt someone in the past and it's coming to the surface during this phase, then you just have to visualize the incident and say that, I am sorry, please forgive me, I love you, and thank you, and just feel that you are forgiven. And for the people that hurt you, you have to let go. So that is more about the phase of purification. And then we go to the third phase, which is illumination. So once you have purified the body, mind, and so to say the spirit, then now God starts showing you some wisdom. And so little by little, you start learning about the purpose of life. You stop having some anxieties and things like fear of death, and you start understanding a lot of the knowledge that goes beyond the physical world. You cannot describe it in words, but then you start feeling a sense of contentment with life. And the transformation of purification as well has changed your virtues. All right, now you know humility. You are not holding on to the false gods, that is the material things of this world, to give you a sense of fulfillment. And even things like loving people, all right, you are going to love people naturally. More often we love people by deciding that we love people. But when you come to that point of God's grace, that is, God has softened you up, then now loving people is more natural. Despite that, there'll still be some people trying to take advantage of you. But those are things that cannot stop you from loving people, because you understand people at a much deeper level. You feel a sense of connectedness with people and things. And just briefly, before I get to the do's and don'ts of the dark night of the soul, let me explain a bit more about it. You're going to get to the deepest level of depression and anxieties and suffering and fear. If you have heard about the story of Job, you know the sort of despair that he experienced. God took away everything from him, his family, his wife, his riches, and even put upon him some form of disease, and the people avoided him. But this story is more of a figurative representation of the dark night of the soul, and you are supposed to be humble. You're supposed to surrender to life the way Joab did. And at the end of this story, God restores Joab after God has taken everything from him and even tested his spirit. And now he comes out a stronger person, and he gets back even more than what he had before. And this is more like what happens when you undergo through the fire or the test of spiritual transformation. Your spirit is liberated from the things that weigh it down, and more like God says that, hey, come, I want to show you a glimpse of something. And so in the dark night of the soul, a lot of things are going to fall apart, but that is God's way of tearing down the house to the last block and then starting to build you anew with materials that are more durable. And we often think that influential spiritual people that we have heard about or read about, that they had special abilities. But that is not the case, because within us all, we have a seed of divinity. And the only difference between us and these people is simply that they took the inner journey. They decided to listen to the voice of God, and they start understanding the higher wisdom and become influential people in the different spiritual denominations. And so even you too can do it. You just have to cooperate. You should not have two minds when undergoing through the dark night of the soul. That is, you want to be of the world and at the same time you want to be of God. That sort of mentality will block your progress, and that is how you might find yourself spending several years in this depression, anxiety, and form of spiritual suffering. Because like I said, once you take the spiritual road, there is no turning back. You can't say that enough is enough, God. I want to go back to my old ways and have a partner and my job and just be a normal people, all right? It's simply a choice that you made, and you have to go through it once you've made that choice. The ultimate prize is the grace of God. You'll just start feeling a form of peace in your heart, and that is grace of God that is now entering you. And I remember at these times when life was just so blurry for me, I remember, just lying down and looking at the ceiling, and I was all alone. And I had a cat, all right. In as much as I was undergoing through this phase of isolation, I received a gift in form of a cat who became a very true friend to keep me through this phase. So in as much as I did not have so much connection with people as I wished to, this cat, was just always there. And so I was just lying down and facing the ceiling, and the cat was just right next to me, also relaxing besides me. And there was this sort of peace inside of me, and it was just a deep connection and a deep sense of love and a deep sense of security. I did not fear anything or have any anxieties and depressions that I was so much vulnerable to before. And I had this direction, first of all, to go to YouTube, and I think that is the first time when I experienced meditation, because I came across a teacher online. He was just telling a story. I watched his first video, and then I got to the second video. By the third video, he was suggesting a form of meditation, and then he was giving the process of how to let go through the mind and connecting with your deeper self. And I remember I was just following this step by step. Then eventually I got to that spot where I was just floating, and I lost a sense of self. And up to now, it's something that has greatly helped me to stay sane. Back then, I think I was just a bit insane. Because every day I was just waking up with a lot of anxiety and depression. And so that is just one way that you receive guidance, in that one lesson after another, you receive a direction of where to go and where to look. And it's more like the teacher is often ready to guide you when you're ready. And this is more like a guardian angel, or what they call the Holy Spirit, to guide you through the next wisdom that you're supposed to learn. And very fast, let me get into some of the things that you should or you should not do while you're in the dark night of the soul, because these are things that will help to facilitate the process. And the first thing is to learn to surrender. You will just have to take each lesson as it comes. You don't have to resist. Also be patient, because you don't instantly get the gifts, but you have to be purified first, and have an open mind, because God teaches through different avenues. You can't say that I only belong to religion X and I cannot listen to what others have to say. And so have an open mind. I believe that God is for us all, regardless of what religion you belong to or don't belong to. Whenever you listen to things, some things you can take in if they resonate with you. If they don't resonate, then put them aside. Don't get caught up in spiritual pride. Whenever we start learning small things, we think that we are woke, and so we just go over showing other people how enlightened we are. And so learn humility, and also don't get caught up in material spirituality. You know what I mean? People want to manifest money, all right? They have all of a sudden found that they can easily manifest when they are spiritually tuned, and so they stagnate in that area where they just want to manifest material things. And there's often a temptation to put off people, to shut people completely off. Avoid that. You can often have your practice of isolation, but then don't burn the past bridges, because once you are through this phase, you will need these people back into your life. Remember, you are going to be the light of many once you come through this phase, including your family. And so don't shut people off. Interact in a way that you still give them the respect, and they also learn to respect you. And even when you look at different spiritual masters, for example, Jesus, and even the Islamic prophet Muhammad, they used to sometimes take their time off to isolate, and that is more like a time to recharge, to have a communion with God before they can face people, and that gave them the confidence to be of better service to people. And so all these things, among many others, will help you to get through the dark night of the soul. All through this, remember God's ultimate promise that God has chosen to work through us. And so the ultimate prize that you're seeking is to have the wisdom and the union of God. If you're undergoing through this phase, I'd recommend 2 books. That is Dark Night of the Soul by John of the Cross, and the other one is Celebration of Discipline by Richard J. Foster. All right, these are writers who have greatly captured the concept of dark night of the soul, though they do it from a Christian perspective. But like I said, a seeker does not discriminate the source of knowledge. And so I'll put the titles in the descriptions and the comments below. And that's it for now. Once again, I'm really grateful that we have hit the 1,000 subscribers mark. This is a huge milestone for me. And so thank you. If you have not subscribed, be sure to subscribe. I would love to know what you will have to say about this content. So drop a comment below, and like also, because all this combined helps to push this stuff. And if you have very personal experiences that you are undergoing and don't know how to get through, you can also write to me an email. Thank you, and have a great time.